Welcome to Inside Prediction Markets. And we're starting with the three biggest things we noticed in prediction markets this week. Chris, what was your first?
Yeah, the first was last week, Arizona suing Kalshi for running an illegal gambling site, which I found very interesting. I think that was the first time a state has filed criminal charges against the prediction market.
Yeah. The CFTC says this is a jurisdictional matter, not a criminal matter, which obviously we're PM shills, but like, yeah, come on. This is not a criminal enterprise. This is a dispute about what is and isn't legal under what jurisdiction. But it's a bold move that Arizona has decided to take, and we'll see how it pans out for them.
Yeah, I mean, this reminds me of the tweet we saw from Golden Pants that a couple days ago. It's like this sportsbooks feel like they have the right to have a monopoly on the recreational customers, and you got to compete for that flow now. And this is going to get ugly. I mean, it's only going to increase over the next coming months and years. I'm very curious how this shakes out. I would be beyond shocked if anyone went to prison for running like
That's not happening.
But
Never say never.
I guess. But is it possible that like Kalshi can't run sports markets anymore? Can we not run? Certainly possible, but for the time being, we'll see.
Number two, the Polymarket Situation Room was a big hit. So,
well, wait. It first was not a hit, and then it was a hit.
It's a riff on this Twitter joke about monitoring the situation constantly. In perhaps classic PM marketing stunt fashion, it was kind of a day late and a dollar short, right? Like this was stood up in advance of the Iran strikes. It would have been awesome. And instead, it's like the first weekend of March Madness. Nobody cares about international affairs. We want to watch basketball games. And then additionally, none of the TVs worked the first night. But, they've got that giant globe in the center. It looks kind of cool in there. And a bunch of vibe-coded monitors.
It kind of just gives like, this is a sports book or sports bar kind of like vibes, with like the odds everywhere. And
it looks like a PM sports book hybrid, a classic sports book. I think it's kind of fun. It makes more sense to me than the grocery store thing.
I guess what I don't understand though is like 2 months from now when it doesn't have insane marketing, like is it going to be popping? Like
it's a pop-up. It's more and more what you see now, right? Is these things that exist in the real world, in fact, just to generate online content. And it's kind of absurd that a physical manifestation even has to be built in the first place. But then we get to today, Monday morning.
Yes.
We're filming on Monday. The big news of the week is this joint bill between Senators Schiff and Curtis to outlaw sports markets on prediction markets.
Yeah, so this is probably the first real threat to the sports prediction markets getting taken off, prediction markets in general. Very curious how this ends up. The market kind of reacted. We saw a flutter in DraftKings stock, both. Flutter being the parent company rather of FanDuel, popping up on the news. But that's also hard to read. Some of it might be like a lot of times just people will be, the market reacted to this. And it's like, there's a bunch of other things that are in play here. Like there was a massive sell-off in both stocks for like the past couple months. Is it now like, okay, there was just waiting for a time for there to be like buyback, and like any news is just an opportunity to buy back. Arkansas also legalized online sports betting a couple weeks ago. Could that be boiling up too? So there's a bunch of things. It's hard for me to say that like, there was a 5% gain, like the market thinks this is real. I wouldn't go that far, and I think there's just a long battle ahead. And if it just two like congressmen could make a bill that was pro or something and it move the stock market 5%, it seems like this would happen a lot more often.
Yeah, I think part of the dovetail of the story would be AOC also tweeted out some criticism of prediction markets this week that had a lot of Republican senators and congressmen quoting and saying, first time I've ever agreed with AOC. In this country, there's a pretty high bar to actually shut down entire industries. And, if you do some back of the envelope math on recent valuations for Kalshi Polymarket, the other companies in the ecosystem. And at some point, we should really talk about how we talk about the customer facing companies, but there really is a giant ecosystem here. Conservatively, you're talking about what is now like a $50 billion industry already. Like in America, we don't blow that up on vibes alone. So I think there actually is quite a high bar to clear. I think more likely is that you end up with a warning shot across the bow that leads to common sense regulation, right? And like, well, why don't we tighten up the rules about marketing and whatnot? And that a lot of the big companies in this space would be on board to do all of that and would say, let's have some real serious conversations about what makes everybody feel comfortable.
And I could totally see kind of like the kalshis, the Polymarkets, the novigs of the world concede something where like, okay, they're paying a 10 or 20% gaming tax for running sports contracts, like some sort of deal like that, where the states are like, all right, we're getting our piece. We're happy. All they care about is the tax revenue. Like it's so like there's a tweet. Let's be honest. It's like you've got the prediction market shills arguing against the casino shills, both pretending to be in the best interest of the American consumer when it's really they're both like fighting about their own pocket. Which I mean, you can't blame them. Like, I'm fighting for my own. Like if anyone thinks I'm going to have a take against prediction markets, you're kidding yourself. So this will take months, though, potentially years to shake out. And until then, it's kind of like the wild, wild west right now. And there's another thing I wanted to mention. It's like there's a lot of commentary amongst like sharps. I see like all these valuations for like kalshi, poly, ourselves, or no, is like way overvalued, and this prediction market industry is way too much. You know, there's a lot of financial and institutional money that do this, like this analysis.
This is like when at the post people say, "How is this game +4? It should be a pick 'em." It's like, okay, you know you're wrong. Like the smartest person in the world has made it +4, right?
If it was so easy,
yeah.
Why aren't you being in the stock market right now?
Yeah. Now, to be fair, you can't really directly short private investors.
Sure.
But there are indirect ways of doing it, and at some point you have to whatever. I agree with you completely. There's smart money that goes down into a lot of these decisions. And I think a hard thing for people to calculate is like a check written into a PM business right now is still like buying a +400 kind of ticket, right?
Yeah.
You are kind of banking on a huge tail scenario. And so it is possible to say the risk is enormous and this probably blows up in my face, but the upside is too good.
I mean, like if Tarek is right and sports on kalshi make up 20% of this volume in 4 years from now, like we're going to be sitting back and like, it was just 20 billion. Like,
right. Slam dunk spot. Yeah. All right. We have a cool guest today.
Yes.
You want to introduce him? You brought him in.
Yeah. Egzee. He was on the Risk Takers podcast. I didn't even ask him because I didn't think he would want to come on because he's all, private now, worried about he's got his internship, so he's all good.
Egzee is the most talked about internship in the history of.
But when I saw him, I was like, oh, do you want to come onto ours now? I mean, I know we're no Risk Takers, but I'm very excited to have him on. He's great. Absolute crusher. Truly, truly one of the most inspirational stories. I don't mean it in a cringy way. I mean it in like, this is what the industry is supposed to be about.
Yeah.
Some kid or some person, some individual just like outworks everyone else and makes generational money from it.
If you can't find it in your heart to be inspired,
Yeah.
you're too cynical.
Yeah.
All right. Egzee coming up next.
All right. Welcome back to Inside Prediction Markets. We have our guest, Egzee. Thanks for joining us.
Let's go. I'm excited.
There we go. That's some good enthusiasm. This is like the fourth take we've had because Egzee's been so mellow.
Egzee, among other things, one of the larger individual market makers on kalshi.
Yes.
And I think maybe kind of unusually doesn't have a ton of history with PMs and sports betting before getting into the current wave. I mean, not zero, but I think we'll get into all of that. But definitely, like when we talk about quote unquote garage band market makers and the new wave, one of the top guys who comes to mind. So really excited.
So Egzee, I know we listened to you on the Risk Takers podcast, obviously, but want to get just for our viewers, how did you start from sports betting and transition to prediction markets, in particular kalshi? I don't know if you're on Polymarket or
Yeah.
Novig or Profit or anything.
Yeah, I did pretty much like normal top down stuff for like 2 years maybe. And then I think it started on the election night in 2024 was the first time I used kalshi. And someone like posted it on Twitter or something, and I was like, well, this is cool. And I don't know if you have ever played a game like MLB The Show or like Madden or FIFA, where there's like an auction house system for cards. Like if I want to buy a card, and the way that the MLB game works is that you can put in a buy order or just click buy now. So like a limit or a market order. And I would like grind that game, like flipping cards is what it was called, like just putting in orders and collecting the spread basically. And I saw kalshi and I was like, holy shit, like, this is the same thing as this video game. I was like, I bet I can do the same thing on the election. And I mean, I made a few $1,000s then, I think, just because there was so many people trying to bet on random stuff on the election. And I was just putting up orders. And then like a year later, I was doing like court setting stuff. I had gone to a couple of college football games. And then they created the RFQ stuff in like October maybe. And then I got on there. I was like, this obviously is a huge opportunity because I knew how parlays like so hard to do and how high margin it is if you are able to do them correctly.
Yeah. So were you, I assume you were using something like Optic Odds or to help you with pricing RFQs, or is that, or were you just doing it differently? Or if you don't want to talk about it, it's okay. But
yeah, I mean, I don't want to talk about too much, but I do all the scraping stuff myself.
oh, wow. Okay.
I think that's like the main thing that I have that's maybe like unique-ish is like that was a lot of the stuff that I did on top down that I thought was able to make me a lot more money, and then it kind of just continued on kalshi.
Got it. Now, what for RFQs, I'm always curious about this. If you just ballpark, what % of your volume is SGPs versus non-SGPs?
I'm not sure. Maybe it's like 50-50. I don't
Oh,
know.
wow. Okay. And then, do you think similar margins for both?
No, the non-SGPs are definitely less because I mean anyone can quote non-SGP parlay, right? Like you just need to have the fairest for each leg.
Yeah. Well, I mean, to get it, you say like it's so easy, but if it's so easy,
Yeah,
why is it never?
it's much easier than doing the same thing parlay.
Yeah. No, makes sense. Um, are you still doing any top down on non PMs or anything like that?
No, I'm completely focused on the prediction market stuff.
And are you currently only trading RFQs, or are you doing top down stuff or anything like that?
No, I do a bunch of other stuff. Like I said on the Risk Takers podcast, the other main thing that I was doing for a while, maybe even before the parlays, was just taking stuff live. There was a lot of good stuff. It's less now, but yeah.
Yeah.
And then other just like normal, like straights market making.
Yeah, makes sense.
Egzee, what would you say has happened to the opportunity over the last 3 months or so? Do you feel like things are still on an upward trajectory for you in terms of potential ROI? Obviously it's getting more competitive on one side, but the order inflows are higher on the other side. Like, how do you feel like things are trending?
Like in general or specifically for parlays?
I would say in general, across wherever you think the best flow is for you to be consuming. I had RFQs in mind, but it could also be like live spots or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, really the same thing. It's I think gotten a lot more competitive over the last few months. I don't think that's to say that like I think I can make less money now than a few months ago, I guess, but it's definitely more competitive.
Do you think it's realistic for you to try to begin originating, modeling, getting to like a full bottom up approach that would kind of diversify you in a way that is insurance against the competition? Or do you think, is that kind of the point at which you say, okay, I got to find the next edge, the next angle, because that is a bridge too far for me? Because I think for a lot of people, that's where it's like, am I going to continue with this journey, or do I have to kind of rethink everything from square one?
I kind of think that like originating stuff is kind of overrated. I think maybe if
That's a ball mower take.
like especially on kalshi, it's just like why I can just like, especially like for NFL or something, you can just post both sides and then nobody's beating that with the 5% fee or whatever, and you're just going to take the spread. And it's like, okay, if like maybe NFL is a bad example here because obviously I can't just build an NFL model, but maybe like, I don't know, an NBA player prop thing. And it's like, okay, like I can know this probability 1% better than the market or something. It's kind of just like, what is the point? I feel like the effort that you need to put in to do that is so much, maybe equal to the effort that you'd have to put into, build better systems or whatever. But I think that the ROI is much less on the effort.
Has anyone reached out to you about a partnership that you thought was interesting?
Like somebody that said like they can originate or something.
Yeah, or somebody says, "Hey, I have this piece of the stack," because they're originating isn't the only thing that you can bring to the table.
Yeah.
But I have this skill. I see what you're doing with tech and execution, and we could build and grow from here. Like, is that something that somebody serious has proposed to you, or that you've thought about?
No, not that I can think of right now. No, I don't think so. I mean, I could be forgetting something, but no, I don't think so.
I want to play devil's. While I agree with you that I think originating is overrated, obviously bias coming from a strictly top-down beta for like 5 years, but when you're dealing with RFQs, if it's early day or even midday and like the market hasn't fully matured, knowing something's off by half a point or a point, don't you think that's a very big advantage? Because now you can quote, and you can get tighter and tighter and like quote both sides -3 when you're competing for parlays. But now one side you can be way off market and kind of move your action that way and win all the flow for RFQs. So you think so the originating can be really helpful from that point of view.
Yeah, I agree. Especially for something less liquid, like maybe like UFC or something. If you thought one of the fights was off by whatever, and you're like, okay, I'm gonna quote this one fighter at like theoretically 0 EV, like or like to the market, but you think it's 5% and you're gonna win every parlay that's including that fighter, like that can definitely be worth it. Yeah.
All right. This also brings me to another thing. I want to debate this for a little because I think we have different takes here. You seem to be, correct me if I'm wrong, against kalshi removing creator IDs. Is that correct?
Yeah. I mean, I don't know about like ethically, but like in my own interests, yeah.
Okay, fair enough. I think ethically it's the right decision, and for the good of the exchange, it's the right decision because like I don't buy the I don't buy the argument that because of they have creator IDs, everyone go tighter. Like,
Pause for a second.
Yeah.
Let's remind or explain to the audience for the first time what a creator ID is and why it matters.
sure. So when you're quoting RFQs, you can see who your counterparty is via creator ID.
You can't see their name.
Right.
You just get a hash, a long random number, letter string that as it repeats over and over again, you can start seeing, you can build a profile of what is this hash requested from me in the past.
Yeah. So you can know like, okay, hey, this user is maybe sharp on CVB or sharp on MBA and whatnot. And you can start to limit that. And that makes sense because like if you want to ever quote overnight RFQs for parlays, you can't just let some sharp jam stuff down your throat. I mean, you're going to get blown up to bits there. So I see it from that point of view. But could you make the argument, Egzee, like why you think it's good for the exchange?
Yeah.
And if you're just like, no, it's just good for me, it's okay too.
No, I actually think it's good for the exchange too. Like it's kind of the same thing as being good for me. Like this kind of goes into what I was saying on the Risk Takers podcast. Is like usually what's good for me in general is going to be good for the exchange. But I think that as someone that's quoting parlays, if I have the creator ID for every bet, and I wanna be able to allow people to bet like tons of money. Like if somebody wants to come in and bet like a couple NBA money lines, I'm like, okay, like go ahead, $10,000, whatever they want to bet. But it's hard to, it becomes a lot or impossible to enforce user limits almost. Like if I see a bet on, if there was no creator IDs, if somebody bet like, I don't know, LeBron 6 rebounds, and then I got another bet in 10 minutes and it's LeBron 6 rebounds, and then another 10 minutes, like I would have no way of knowing that's the same person. Like that's the main thing that I would like to use them for, is knowing that's the same person and not letting one person hit me for like 50,000 on LeBron rebounds, compared to like, yeah, okay, this guy's beating me over 100 or 500 parlays. Like I'm just going to stop quoting him. And like, obviously that's great for me, but I think that's a lot less of why I think it's good. And just in general, the value of kalshi comes from, like from the company standpoint, they want a lot of money to be bet on there to take the fee. And like 99% of the money bet is from rec flow, maybe probably more. And if I have the creator IDs, I can quote way more, much more limits on things, and maybe even more markets at better prices probably. And that's better for the 99%. And it's worse for the 1% of the people who are actually trying to win. But I think that the 99%, the interest of the 99% is really the interest of the exchange.
So my counter argument to that would be, is it not just a skill issue? Like get better at quoting the harder stuff, and like, why is your inability to do that reason to punish that 1%? And also, like, are you actually quoting tighter, or are you just taking more advantage of the 99%?
No, I think that it is a skill issue, and like I'm not exactly opposed to the IDs not being there, because like it makes it harder, obviously. And I'm not sure that's a bad thing for me. Like if I think that I'm like really good at doing this stuff, then theoretically making it harder for everyone is going to be better for me. But I definitely, like 100%, there's going to be, I would have less thresholds, like allowing things to be bet per 10 minutes or per 15 minutes or whatever without creator IDs.
You know, I got a text this week from ADR. So first of all, shout out ADR for listening to the show, but he just texted me in quotes, "Sharp takers are people too."
He texted me too.
And I was like, oh, I guess we were kind of going in on him last show if I said that. But I mean, I agree with what Eggzee's saying, that I think there's an education process that everybody has to go through, where if you are sharp and also a maker or a quoter, there's a symbiotic relationship between you and the health of the ecosystem. And if you are sharp and strictly a taker, you are a big net negative on health. Now, it doesn't mean you don't have like rights and that you're not a person, but you have to like factor that into how you make decisions. And you can say, we are going to be so pro sharp that we support the sharp taker side of it completely and fully. But if you end up offering worse prices because of that, that's just something you have to live with.
So would it not be fair to say that like someone, like, I'm bashing myself when I say this, I'm top down. Both Egzee and I don't have any real opinions. We're just like stealing.
You sell yourself short, by the way, but I'll let you continue with this ruse that you never originate anything. Yeah.
Yeah, fair enough. But like we are taking opinions from other people. Like, should not the people? Isn't the point of an exchange just two different opinions battling each other, not like people copying other opinions and then just profiting off of that? So, like, are me and Egzee like those type of people like not being cancerous to the exchange system too?
But don't we have an opinion on like what books matter or like
Fair.
how to get the actual price from the market? Like if there's, I feel like a bunch of examples, like if Pinnacle and Circa are disagree on something and like Circa just moved or whatever, whoever has higher limits, like it's not like there's just one fair price posted out there in the universe and like everyone can just see it.
Oh no, don't get me wrong. Like, I think a lot of people, think less of top down people, but there's like massive skill edges in like being a top down better. And like some random idiot using like odds jam, they're like at a different level compared to like someone like you or me, Egzee interpreting market. And sure, that certainly has a skill, but at the end of the day, your skill is reading the opinions of other people, not coming up with it from your own
Yeah.
bottoms up like approach.
Yeah. I mean, I still think it's an opinion though. Like who cares how you got to it?
I guess that's fair. I didn't think about it like that, but that's fair.
Similar thing in bookmaking, right? In classic bookmaking, it's which bets are sharp and which ones aren't.
Yeah,
And that's
true.
the whole, or when should I just move on air and all that kind of thing. And it's interesting to watch, and we're seeing it take shape more, like how individuals quoting either on an order book or on a RFQ feed start to form this kind of aggregate hive mind opinion. You know what I mean? Because like somebody can batter something into one quoter and maybe they move out of the way, but is somebody else stepping right up in their place, or is everybody kind of moving out of the way? And how does that trickle down everywhere else? And all of that is going to evolve over time, and people are going to have different fundamental takes on how you respond to these things.
So, Egzee, I sent a meme in our Slack the other day. It was a picture of the man holding up the world, and it was Penny with 5K CBB limits, supporting the global ecosystem of millions of dollars traded on the exchange. How truthful do you view that meme?
I think it's definitely true. I mean, obviously, it's not really like 5,000 limits. There's obviously other books that you can bet into, but yeah, it's definitely true that I think a lot of people, including myself, are probably willing to take more than Pinnacle will on their own lines. And I mean, it's definitely a question to ask, like, is that smart? And sometimes even a better price than Pinnacle. Like if Pinnacle's, I don't know, -110, and I'm trying to get filled at like +105, and maybe I'm posting even bigger than Pinnacle's limits. It's like is that really a good idea? Because obviously Pinnacle would go tighter if they, I don't know if they could, but yeah.
Yeah, this reason I asked this as a follow up is I feel like this whole ecosystem is very fragile right now. We're like, we haven't seen any like massively big dogs come in there with like mid 6-figure to like low 7-figure like positions and like just blow up the market and say no. Like you cannot just do this and get away with it forever. Like,
Well, are we sure that hasn't happened yet?
fair.
I mean,
Or-
you guys see the Arizona game yesterday? It went from like, I don't know, +700 to like +300 in like 5 minutes. And I mean, I got completely filled. And then it went right back to like +600 everywhere. I don't know. Like every book moved.
I did not.
Every book moved.
Oh,
like,
wait, was this?
to like +300 on Utah State.
Pre-game or live?
Yeah, pregame. It was like a few hours.
Was this like the
pregame.
flash crash thing?
Yeah. Yeah, it was for like a few minutes.
Yeah, because I think
Oh, yeah,
somebody,
yeah.
because there's also, I need to learn what this like hack is on Polymarket, but there are people who are like breaking Polymarket and getting fill notifications triggered that aren't actually executing on chain. And my understanding was there was some of that going on in this Arizona game too. People like synthetically making it appear as though a ton of volume was happening. Maybe I shouldn't speak about it until I know more about it. But I more generally, what I can say is I think we all know instances where people are doing offshore, what you might call market manipulation, except that offshore books aren't considered regulated markets, right? But they're people are making trades and bets in order to push the global market around in such a way as to cover up action where it might not actually be clear. Like you don't then come in and clear the order book and make it obvious, right? But you bias asymmetrically in your makes, push the market around, and it's not obvious what you were ever really doing. And it'll be interesting to see how much of that the market can support before people kind of get wise to it and detect it and start combating it. And the other thing is, what is the CFTC's opinion on that relative to market manipulation? Like you definitely cannot go onto a regulated prediction market and start making trades you don't really want to spoof lines one way to come back on them the other way. But I don't think there's any reason you are not allowed. That's not something I would mess around with, but I don't think they care what happens in Costa Rica and Mauritius, as long as the activity on the platforms they're actually in charge of looks legit. But I think that's a big question that's hanging over a handful of people's heads. Not something we mess around with, but it's happening for sure. Yeah. And a tough thing to think about and defend against if you're in there kind of passively, naively quoting both sides. You mentioned last night watching the market get blown up from 700 to 300 and back up. Have you seen more instances like that where you feel like there was a major market head fake that just piled into you? Is that's something that comes up commonly?
I haven't noticed that, but I'm sure that somebody's moved a line on FanDuel, a player prop or something, and then can embed it back the other way, 100%.
Yeah.
And that's definitely something that's really easy to do and would be really effective to move FanDuel or BetOnline or whoever.
Yeah. NBA Finals totals last year overnight would move 4 points at 3 a.m. and then they'd come back at 4 a.m.
That was hilarious to watch.
And I don't know, it was so obvious that everybody was copy trading off of it after the first time it happened. I don't know who was the originator of it. I don't know what the biggest target was for it. And that was the NBA Finals. Crazy.
It's happening early in the playoffs too, but yeah.
Well, yeah, maybe I didn't notice. It'll be interesting to see how that. I'm kind of bracing for it for the next round of NBA playoff games.
This is it goes back to if you're an originator and you know this and you have the nuts, it's very helpful. It's very hard for me to read because is it a fake? Is it not a fake? I'm asking myself these questions all the time when I'm trading. I mean, I'm sure that you're the same, right, Egzee?
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, even if you did have the best model or whatever, and the market moves 3 points, I feel like it would still be really hard to say okay, that's a fake, or okay, that's something that I'm not taking into account.
Yeah, that's true. Especially if anything where a player is questionable or anything like that, it's okay, it's really quite scary. You don't want to
when people talk about oh, are you worried about Jump and Sig getting into PMs? I'm I don't worry about them handicapping, Jokic versus Embiid better than the guys I know. What I worry about is them being on top of this kind of stuff. This is right in their wheelhouse, right? Mass consumption of market signals processed in real time, which actually kind of brings us to Egzee's famous internship. The only reason a lot of us even know who Egzee is because he made his kalshi profile public for a while so he could send it around to all the big hedge funds and to us and say, look how smart I am. Can I have a job?
We were talking about this. I get a lot of DMs, I'm sure you as well, asking for jobs. And most of them are kind of cringy. It's I love sports and I love your mission. I'm okay, hundreds of people are similar. And then Eggs is just hey, I make lots of money. Give me a job.
He complained to me that he spent $8 on Twitter Premium to be able to DM me. So it was kind of implicit. First off, I come work for you. There's an extra $8 in the first week's paycheck.
Yeah,
because I had to do this.
Yeah.
And then I called. One other story. I called him up, and I said, "Look, we're going to be so busy. I'd love to have you, but there's a chance that I barely ever talk to you, and you're just training with my money for 10 weeks and hanging out in New York. Do you want to do that? And he was like, hell yeah, dude. It sounds awesome. I was like, all right, cool. Yeah. Come if you want. I got a spot for
But
you.
he big time.
He totally bailed on us.
I mean, it did sound great. Yeah, unfortunately, I did not end up taking that. I mean, I wasn't lying. That 100% sounded like a great time.
I don't know. It sounded fun to me too. And you're going, I don't know if you've said the name of where you're going publicly, so I won't say it.
I mean, I have, but I realized I should have, so I'm not gonna say it.
Yeah. We'll leave it out.
I got a few messages like I stalked you on LinkedIn, and like I found who you are. I'm like, all right, yeah.
But you're going somewhere more traditional finance.
Yeah, a place like a Jump or Seg.
So is that ultimately where you think your career is going? Do you see yourself doing that route ultimately? Or is that like, I want to get this on my resume because then I have it for life, but I kind of feel like I can make a big living on this PM thing?
Yeah, I mean, I think 3 or 4 months ago, like, yeah, now not so much anymore, but I'm still excited for it because I feel like it sounds corny, but like it is such a good learning experience to learn from a huge company like that. That's so similar to what I'm doing at like a billionth of the scale.
You know what's another great experience that's even more similar to what you're doing? Learning from Henry Corin's. Like, that's a great experience there. Just throwing it out there. Like, you know, we'd love to have you. You should.
We'll come back to it a year from now. Honestly, yeah. Let him go actually learn some real information.
Hey, I did the finance route for a year, and then I had to get out. I realized sports. Hopefully, you'll come to the light too, Egzee. But if you do end up being finance and you like it, I wish you all the success there as well.
All right, we're getting towards the end, but one question we like to ask our guests, Egzee, what is the most expensive lesson you ever learned in prediction markets?
The one that I can think of, I lost like, I think it was like $200,000 or something because I had a hockey spread flipped, and it was like plus 200 on a minus 200. And I said this on the Risk Takers podcast, and the guy actually DM'd me. He was like, "Bro, that was me." I was like, "All right." Yeah, so that sucked. It taught me to fix my scraper. Basically, that was the lesson I learned. And well, the real lesson was to not let someone bet that much at one time. Not at one time. Those sound a bunch of different things, but yeah, I don't think that's possible for it to happen anymore. So it's good.
I think we did minus 100K on a hockey total.
No,
4.5 or 5.5.
just 60, but
60. Oh, great. Yeah.
discount. No, it's sort of we had that same like hockey thing too. It's very frustrating. It's like we're just trying to help with truth discovery.
We're just trying to help, guys.
Yeah.
Everybody calm down with these giant fills. All right, Egzee, we're going to wrap it up here. Really appreciate you coming through. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for having me.